must be our goal and our guide. And all that we strive for as a human family, dignity and hope, progress and prosperity, depends on peace. But peace depends on us.
A country beaten by forces of peace, unity, against forces of impunity, bad politics, and tribal politics. The good forces of peace, unity, national reconciliation, led by President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, want to live a united, prosperous, one person, one nation, one country called Kenya. The bad forces led by Deputy President William Ruto want to live a divided, broken, damaged, dismembered Kenya without unity of purpose. Kenya today stands at cliffhanger politics. A cliffhanger politics of Machiavellian nature, where at night we praise the devils. During the daytime, we praise the leaders. We go back at night, damage the leadership. That's where Kenya is today. Whichever divide you are, there is only one way out. One way out of this quagmire is to stick to a redemption strategy. Any conflict resolution expert on this panel, like Professor Onyari, will tell you the only way out to save this nation from sinking to the another chaos is to bring out the 9 points of the BBI. All of you know the 9 points of BBI. They touch national ethos, national bad elections. It is a cocktail of disaster that the two leaders saw that the four made them to shake hands and to bring it to the table. That for Kenya to conduct another election in this country without cleaning the national electoral mechanisms, the disaster will be worse than it was before. That for Kenya to go without national healing, reconciliation, accountability, restitution, reparation, truth-telling, forgiveness, we are staring at a disaster if we don't do a reconciliation now and never. It is now and never. Embarking on an early campaign has brought us to where we are. President Uhuru Kenyatta told people to concentrate on nation building. We abandoned the nation building ventures. We have gone on personal crusade ventures. We have gone on the same path where we believe we glorify corruption, and glorify many things that are not glorifiable. It is sad, therefore, for my people of Kenya. It is also a call to the people of Kenya. Either they choose to go with the redemption strategy or they perish. The choice remains the choice of the people of Kenya. If you want to go with a redemption strategy of Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta of uniting this nation, that so be it. If you want to go with obsession of 2022 politics, even when there is no referendum, and even when there is no competitor, yet the choice is yours. But at the end of the day, the citizens of this country are tired. If you don't see the fatigue that has come amongst the citizens who are being used as wheelbarrow pushers, who are being used as machines that will break in a day and you don't have any spare part to repair it, but it was done for PR, it is up to you. Do you empower people to push a wheelbarrow, or you empower people with knowledge? During this COVID-19, Rwanda, as a country that was besieged by the same disease that we see here, the disease of a creation of a hustler versus a dynasty. It is not different from the disease of a Tutsi versus a Hutu. You are not seeing what I'm seeing. Oh ye Kenyans, believe me, believe in me. You are not seeing what I'm seeing. You have created a narrative of a hustler versus a dynasty. It is like a Tutsi versus a Hutu versus a Tutsi. Look ye ahead. Look ye ahead in the horizon and see what is coming in 2022. It will be the battle of those that you want to eliminate against those who will be defending themselves. If you don't take my notes here, I will carry my dust. As the Bible said, go away with my dust. Because I see, from my vision, I can see we are on a wrong path. We have about to cross the red line. We are creating sections. We are fragmenting a state. We are dismembering a state. We are creating hurtling. Our train is hurtling towards one word. And that one word is conflict. That one word, my panel, is conflict. We better stop the train hurtling towards conflict and stop it now. Thank you.
A very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us. This is Africa Showdown. My name is Miriam Ogutu, and today we have so much in store for you. It is the 29th of November 2020. The month is almost coming to an end. A few minutes past 3 p.m. here in Nairobi. I trust your weekend has been coming up well and your Sunday is going on just fine. So before I introduce the topics, I'm joined on the panel by Daniel Wesonga from Nairobi. Daniel, a very good afternoon to you.
Yes, a very, very good afternoon, Miriam Ogutu at our headquarters in Nairobi, our viewers here in Kenya, Africa, and the rest of the world. Good afternoon.
All right, and also I'm joined by Douglas Kirimi from Meru. Douglas, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miriam. Good afternoon to the crew. Good afternoon to Sean in Nairobi, and good afternoon to our viewers around the world.
Okay, very well. So we have so much to talk about since the last we had this conversation on Friday. But before we get into it, the latest in line with COVID-19, Kenya right now, the cases stands at 82,605, the number of confirmed cases in the country, and the death toll is at 1,445. Recoveries right now stands at 54,399, and Uganda, the cases at 19,944 cases. 201 people have since lost their lives in Uganda. Recovery stands at 8,944. And South Africa, 785,139 cases have been reported. The death toll has stopped 21,439 cases, and recoveries right now is at 728,347. And we look at ways that Nigeria 66, since we'll be talking about Nigeria, so how about we catch up with the latest in terms of the figures they have in COVID-19, and the recorded cases in Nigeria is at 66,974. 1,169 people have died and 62,585 people have since recovered, and the total cases in Africa this afternoon stands at 1,730,115 cases. The death toll is 57,523, and the recoveries is at 1,384,662. The global figures have surpassed 62.6 million cases. The death toll have surpassed 1.4 million cases, and the global recoveries have surpassed 43.2 million cases. So let's just leave that alone and get to our topic of the day, and we shall do that while we look at the headlines there. The Sunday Standard and also the Sunday Nation. And our topic on Kenya before we get to Africa is BBI and the referendum, and then the second one is the redemption strategy. So let's just start looking at that. And on the Sunday Standard update says the main headline is, will Ruto Raila work together? Reunion or tactical retreat? They are combative, command a fanatical following, and reserve the choicest adjectives for each other. The 2022 election is framed as the ultimate showdown between them. Now, the last time they played together, Ruto was a lapdog for Raila. Now, that's not very nice. I'm not sure Ruto will be very happy to hear that. So Ruto was a lapdog for Raila. Then ICC happened and Ruto broke loose to oppose the 2010 referendum and then teamed up with Uhuru to win the presidency twice. Now another referendum is bringing them together, but only just. An update says, back BBI or lose your seat. Jubilee wants members whipped. Ruling party reads riot act to MCAs, MPs and senators. Those who defy risk expulsion. And I'll start with you, Douglas. And on Friday, I think I was happy to learn that the Deputy President now is happy with the changes that were made in the BBI, and he said he will support the BBI, but then again he tweeted again yesterday, so I don't know what you make up of all these developments since the last time we spoke on Friday. Go ahead, Douglas.
Miriam, thank you. One of the things that Kenyans should be able to see, and especially the followers of the Deputy President William Ruto is a cunning politician, is an hypocrite, who has also conned his own followers. His followers since Friday until now are confused. Most of them are saying we are going to vote no, we are going to follow what William Ruto is not saying. What they need to understand is that when some of us who are not born, William Ruto was still conning Kenyans, and he has been doing that for the longest time, and him opposing the government is a problem for him. So William Ruto is doing a tactical retreat, yes, to support the government, yes, because he cannot afford to be in opposition. And also I've heard where you've quoted newspapers saying he opposed the constitution in 2010 and also sneaked in to form government with the President Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013 two times. That is not going to happen again, because including his core followers are saying William should now go into ending and come at the eve of election in 2022. Mr. Ruto cannot be trusted by the people that he had started a movement with, cannot be trusted by most Kenyans. And I also think his marriage with President Uhuru Kenyatta, in quote, their political marriage, was a marriage of convenience. So I also believe the president is also tired with him since 2017. We haven't seen the president talking much about the deputy and all that. And the president has been quoted 2 or 3 times talking about his deputy, only to make a point as a president, a presidential point where he would quote and say, my deputy, to reaffirm that maybe when the deputy has been moving around for the last 2 years, has been involved in the whole process of the BBI. And one of the things that William Ruto should now do is that he needs to realize that Kenyans have opened their eyes, and Kenyans are also true to their word, that they are going to punish him in 2022 for his rise and also his conmanship. So Miriam, one of the things that I also find William Ruto doing is that he is playing around with their minds. He cannot be waking up with the tweets every morning and then in the evening he is tweeting another thing this way. His followers are educated. The people who oppose him are also educated. People can see by his rise. Where was his constitutional duty to assist the president for the last 2 years? When now he has woken from his slumber when the BBI train has left the station, William Ruto now has found that he has a constitutional duty to support the president. Whereas he has been calling the Right Honorable Raila Odinga a witch and also a sorcerer, he's been also on record saying that the BBI process is a process to create seats for the bosses at the top. Is he not a boss? And Miriam, in conclusion, we want to call the hot air that has been the political ambition and opposition of BBI process from William Ruto. We want to call the hot air that has been the rise that he has told them he has an alternative, whereas he has no alternative. Miriam, you cannot support me. Then the next minute, you want to still have a consensus. When you visit me today and we decide we are going to prepare rice and beef, you cannot continue now when I'm preparing beef as the last resort to our meal. You cannot continue saying we can still have consensus on the meal that we shall have. And it's past 10 p.m., Miriam. People want to eat and go and sleep. In this case, people want to move on with BBI process so that the referendum can come, so that we can vote. And we have seen so many opposition proxies from William Ruto being sponsored around Nairobi and other parts of the country to oppose the BBI process. How we are recording him is on 21st of June 2021, there will be a referendum in this country, and this referendum cannot be stopped by shenanigans. We have also welcomed him on this other side because William Ruto has been a critic. William Ruto has been anti-BBI. What we are asking him is that he can now quell his still and come. If he still thinks that there can be consensus before there is a referendum, he is daydreaming. His views has been captured in the BBI report, and we cannot afford another moment to entertain William Ruto. President Uhuru Kenyatta knows who William Ruto is. Raila Odinga, who has also worked with William Ruto, knows, including we Kenyans, know who William Ruto is. So I want to call out the hot air that has been the opposition to the BBI process from William Ruto, and also the cosmetic support of the BBI process. If he wants to support the BBI process, he needs to support it candidly, rightly, and also with resources. Whatever he's been donating in churches, he can now donate to the BBI process to make his constitutional mandate that has been given by Kenyans to support the president clear, precise, and on point. Thank you, Miriam.
All right, very well. I'm just seeing that tweet he did, I think a couple of hours ago, says rational to conclusions or pretense to prophecy. I've received overwhelmingly feedback, all shares from Kenyans. Asante, the fury of political merchants desperate to encash like they did COVID-19. A divisive something, I've missed that, but I think they'll bring it back there. But yesterday, this is the quote he made after that seems to be backpedaling on that on what they shared on Friday in regards to him supporting the BBI. And he tweeted, I have constitutional duty to assist my boss, the president. We've made improvements to BBI post bombers. now working on consensus for Kenyans to have real choices to decide. Vote while avoiding yes, no, all, nothing division. We avoided lose-lose. We can overcome win-lose to achieve win-win. DP Ruto is quoted as saying. So what essentially DP is saying, Daniel, is that, well, as much as, so I'm here. It's not that I'm supporting the BBI, but I want to support my boss, the president. I don't know why I find that statement just interesting, because that is, a lot of people have been perceiving that that is not what he's been doing for the last, especially on the second term of the administration. He's been seen to have been running away. Even President Uhuru Kenyatta said that. So now he's saying he's supporting his boss. He's not really supporting the BBI process, but he's supporting the position of his boss from this tweet. That is what that is my understanding, Daniel.
Miriam, first of all, let me make it clear to Kenyans that the deputy president is not supporting the BBI. If he's going to support the BBI, he will not do so because he believes in the views and the ideals that are envisaged in the BBI process, in the BBI document. If William Ruto is going to support this particular document, it is because right now he's a besieged man. William Ruto is between, is split between choosing between a devil and the dark blue sea. So he has nowhere to go. He has nowhere to run. Financially, he doesn't have that muscle to bankroll a referendum, owing to the fact that after the referendum, we shall only be few months to the general election. So therefore, he's avoiding any kind of direct confrontation with this other camp that will lead to spending some money, that will lead to some way of political mobilization. And also remember, Miriam, just like the 205 referendum, we saw Dr. Matsanga really analyze it in the legacy trend, that these constitutional reforms, the referendum, will create a stage for the conversation towards 2022. And whoever will be able to garner much support for the referendum and be able to win the vote will be having an upper hand when it comes to the 2022 general election. So these are gambles that William Ruto might not be quite willing to throw his shoes into. And therefore, he's just being careful with this kind of expedition, also owing to the fact that a majority of leaders have already shown their support for the document. So therefore, Miriam, to me, I think William Ruto is undecided. Deep inside his heart, he wants to oppose the BBI report, but the prevailing conditions seem to be, the tide of the prevailing conditions seems to be moving against him. And therefore, even whatever he's tweeting is just a mere confusion. It is it shows the kind of disarray that is at the center of his team, his strategic advisors, and his supporters alike. So to me, I think he's not. If he's going to support the BBI report, it will not be out of goodwill, but it's because he has been nabbed and he's between a rock and a hard place, and that is why perhaps you saw the other day he tried to make a comeback, trying to allude that Section 11A of the BBI report had incorporated the ideas and the views of the hustlers, and it adequately took their interests into consideration. But Douglas Javan and Professor Dr. Masanga will tell you that these things have been there in the BBI report. It's not a new thing that has been added there. The only thing that was tweaked, it was the issues of elaborating about how it caters for the pastoralists, and as well as also the blue economy. So to me, I think he's looking for any flimsy reason to support the BBI without feeling that sense of shame and guilt, because he has been really launching scathing attacks on the document itself and disregarding it at any opportunity he is got with the masses. So to me, I think he wants to support BBI because his path to opposing it have been cut short, and therefore he has no other choice. But also in doing so, he wants to look for a reason to really justify his support for the BBI report. Mm-hmm. So my call on him is that let the deputy president be honest, let him be truthful, let him avoid a lot of treachery and sanctimonious engagements, and just support BBI report without putting it into a miasma of innuendos and braggadocio that he's doing right now. It will be so much noble for him, for a leader that he is, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, to just give the President and the former Prime Minister and whoever is support on the BBI report without necessarily telling us, oh, this was wanted before this to be accomplished. I wanted them to do this and this and this and that, and it has been done. So let him just give it unrivaled support, and we shall respect that, and we shall move forward as a country. Otherwise, all these other things that he's posting on Twitter and all those are just shenanigans to hide the shame that comes with now him swallowing his bitter pill. That is my take, Miriam.
All right, very well. And the Sunday Nation had a story. I think they did an interview with Raila Odinga, and that is on page 20 and 21 of the Sunday Nation. And I'll just read a bit of it. And the title is, Raila, I doubt DP Ruto's sincerity on support for BBI. And it states, ODM leader Raila Odinga has said Deputy President William Ruto is not sincere in his ultimatum for consensus before supporting constitutional amendments through the Building Bridges Initiative referendum. In an interview with the Sunday Nation, Mr. Odinga repeated his stand that there was nothing like a non-contested referendum anywhere in the world. The former Prime Minister said the DP was replicating the political games he, Dr. Ruto, played in 2010 when he ended up joining hands with the sections of the church to oppose proposed changes to the old constitution. He's quoted as saying he is following his 2010 script when he signed that Naivasha declaration, only to turn around and campaign for no. We ended up with a contested referendum but still won. That's his nature, but it is his democratic right to oppose. And then down here it says, Mr. Raila added that DP Ruto, who has been blowing hot and cold, is looking for excuses to justify opposition to the referendum, something he did not start yesterday. So, Douglas, what Raila is saying, this is not surprising. What DP is doing now is not surprising. This is something that happened during our last referendum, and so he blows hot and cold, like he said there. He signed the agreement in Naivasha before we had the promulgated, Naivasha declaration in 2010, but went ahead and changed later and joined the church to oppose the same thing that he signed to. So Raila is saying, I'm not really surprised. Are you surprised, Douglas?
I am not, because William Ruto is a cunning politician, and that is what people should know him for. William Ruto has never been known as a reformist in this country, and William Ruto has never known to be standing for anything in this country. What William Ruto has been doing for the last 8 years is to hang on the quotes of President Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee Manifesto. And when you listen to him, when he speaks in public, the man has no conviction of his own. You only go ahead and talk about the Jubilee Manifesto, the electricity that the president is putting up, then you insult the same president on whose principle and manifesto he stands, on whose shoulders he stands. He needs to be able to come out clear and also show Kenyans who he is. If serious, if he has been converted, he needs to come out very clearly and also show us who he is. Because at the end of the day, we have known William Ruto to camouflage around and also come again and also benefit. There is a day, Sean said on the show last week, he said William Ruto is the biggest beneficiary of this BBI process. I didn't see it coming from the question that you have asked, and I tend to agree now with Sean, because my political persuasion does not allow me to agree with William Ruto is the biggest beneficiary. But how come when everyone wants to change something in this country, William Ruto will go and oppose? When it is done, he comes and benefits. So I also believe the BBI process has a position for him, including in government or also in opposition. Whereas the BBI report says that there will be a prime minister and a president, it also encompasses an office of the leader of opposition. So I also believe that William Ruto, all the things that William Ruto is doing is just to confuse his followers, and also not to tell his followers that he cannot be able to sustain a war against the people that made him. The same people he caused dynasties are the same people that he has been hanging around with. In 1992, he was hanging around Moi in the infamous young youths for KANU, Moi 92. In 1997, he was with Moi. In 1992, he was with a senior dynasty with President Uhuru Kenyatta. And in 2007, he was with another dynasty, Raila Odinga. in 2013, he went back to his first dynasty, the second dynasty that people he has been sorting around the country. And one thing we also we have seen a pattern is that the church and William Ruto are always researching around and also agreeing and practicing to oppose changes that have brought change in this country. One thing we also need to agree, Miriam, is that in this country, we need to separate the church and the way we run our politics, because our politicians and our pastors and bishops will come and get corrupted and also mislead us as Kenyans. We agree they are our spiritual hands and everything, but when it comes to political matters, let the people decide on what is best for them. The church can introduce their crisis and what they believe in and what they want changed, but they cannot purport to give Kenyans direction on something that Kenyans can be able to do themselves. Because Miriam, one of the things that we have come to agree with as Kenyans is that every time there is a constitutional movement, every time when devolution was mentioned, William Ruto and the church were moving around telling us women will be forced to do abortions. Almost 10 years later, we haven't seen women being forced to do such things. So one thing is that William Ruto and the church have also come out as enemies of this country, and they are not patriotic, Miriam. We need to also agree on that and also make peace with it, that most of the time, William Ruto just confused the church. Now he has left the church and his followers like orphans. They have no leader. So one thing that we can also agree is that whereas William Ruto will always team up with the church and other people to oppose government, William Ruto has no stamina and has no capacity to oppose government, because that is where he knows, that is home for him, and that is everything about him.
All right, so there's a question that was posed to Raila Odinga during this interview. There, I'll just read it and then read his response. The mission, that was the question, the mission of the Building Bridges Initiative, BBI, you told us was to unite the country. Don't you think going into a referendum when others like Deputy President William Ruto are not keen on it will divide Kenya even further? And this was Mr. Raila's response. I need to be taken to a political school and receive lessons on what this so-called non-contested referendum is. Then why do we have it if it's non-contested? You just need to go to Parliament and have it approved, and that's the end of it. In any referendum, there's a question on whether one supports a particular issue or not, and that already leaves one with a choice to make. You can never expect an absolute support on an issue. A referendum by nature must have some people supporting and others opposing. And I think we've been trying to grapple with the same question here when we talk about this referendum, and for those who are calling for a consensus and non-contested referendum. And so Raila also saying, hey, can you take me to a political school? Because I need to be schooled about this. I've never had something like this happen before in any democracy. So this seems to be a fast, and it's confusing even for Raila himself. Daniel.
Yes, I believe that as a country where we believe in democracy, in the precincts of democracy, it is only sober and very progressive that in the question of referendum, we subject these particular documents to the voters to be able to decide. You know, talking about a society that has really enforced on the existence of democracy, and to be able to talk about now uncontested democracy referendum, you know, it is very ambiguous and quite far-fetched, because you saw even in Britain when they wanted to get out of the European Union in Brexit, they had to go to a referendum. We saw the other day even when I was talking about Africa, when we had our independence, we had countries which had go to a referendum to determine their fate, whether they wanted a black majority rule or they wanted to stay under the patronship of the former colonial masters. So therefore, the question of democracy, when you're talking about democracy and at the same time you're talking about non-contested referendum, then it really defeats logic for the deputy president and his supporters. You know, even world over, we've never had something of the so-called nature that it's an uncontested referendum. Because at the end of the day, it's people who have to decide. We understand that a majority of Kenyans gave their view to the BBI reports, but as well, we do have people who have dissenting views against this BBI process and the document itself. So we have to also give them a fair chance and to give them a fair chance will only be viable if we can subject it to a vote, where those ones who feel that it's a good document can be able to vote for yes, and those ones who feel that it does not really address the immediate issues that they feel that it would have addressed, then they shall be able to vote for no. And that is what a democratic society does. And therefore, I support whatever sentiments that the former Prime Minister had in regards to the rhetoric that is being driven by the Deputy President that we have an uncontested referendum. I think the Deputy President does not have the goodwill to support this particular initiative, and history has taught us to know that William Ruto has never supported any reform agenda in this country. In 1992, 1990, during the 90s, when Raila Odinga, James Orengo, the likes of Bishop Njoya, Timothy Njoya, Paul Mwite, and Githobu Imanyara were fighting for the repeal of Section 2A of the Constitution to allow pluralism in our politics. William Ruto was in government, and by then he was in the most vicious Kanu youth wing, which was called the YK92, which could hunt down and brutally assault the proponents of democratic space and reforms in this country. And therefore, he has no say when it comes to matters of reform. In 2010, when we in 2005, when the then government wanted to change the constitution through the referendum, Ruto was in the no camp, together by that time with Raila Odinga. When the new constitution now came in 2010, he again was in the no camp, and where he was speaking in the same terms as he is doing today, that if Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki want the citizens, if the citizens of this country rather want Raila Odinga and Mwai Kibaki to listen to them, the only option for them is to vote no and shoot down the constitutional reforms. So to me, I think this is a person who has never stood for anything in this country, as Douglas says, and therefore expecting such a man to support the BBI report will be akin to squeezing water from a stone and expecting that it will really flow out of it. So to me, we have to realize early enough, and the earlier the better, so that we do not let William Ruto and his cohorts be able to sabotage these the BBI process in its final stages. So to me, I agree absolutely with what former Premier says, that he lacks the goodwill, he lacks the intention and the political the political support for the BBI process, and therefore we should not give him so much attention when it comes to consensus and when it comes to the conversation about the BBI report. Let us proceed as per the schedule. We can continue collecting signatures. Once the signatures are ready, we should move to the next phase, and in mid next year, let Kenyans decide. And that is what democracy is, Miriam. Mm-hmm. I submit.
All right, very well, Douglas. From that tweet by Deputy President yesterday, he seems to be... Yeah, from that tweet of Deputy President...
No. Jevan is right.
Jevan. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Miriam.
Oh, so sorry. I did not know you were there. Oh, so sorry. So
I have been here.
Oh, all right. Good afternoon from Nanyuki.
Good afternoon to Miriam. Good afternoon to Wesonga and Douglas, and to all our viewers, wherever they are catching this broadcast from.
All right. So from the tweet our Deputy President had yesterday, that seems to be a change of tone from what he said on Friday. He seems to be pushing for more consensus. Does our Deputy President perhaps sometimes lack the wisdom of knowing, if you gamble, there are a few rules for you to be a successful gambler? And if you know that song by, that country music song that says you should know when to fold up, does he lack the wisdom to know when to fold up and to know when to stop pushing further?
Yeah, Miriam, and that is a very good question. And Miriam, I have listened to what Wesonga and Douglas have said, and I'm quite in agreement with whatever that statement they have made. And the one thing, Miriam, that we must also look into is like the history, like Douglas was saying. William Ruto has not been the face of reforms in this country, but to the contrary of that, he has been the face of all manner of other things, Miriam. You know them, and viewers know what I'm talking about. Therefore, Miriam, when we expect him to support this document, Miriam, we might be too late to think that he will do it, because at the end of the day, Miriam, we call for the consensus until the end of time. And Miriam, before we realize it, he will flip and flop to 2022, where he has been since 2018. And Miriam, before I come there, there's something that you have said. You are asked that, and he is saying that he is supporting the BBI because he wants to respect the will of the boss and what his boss is doing. Miriam, we know for a quite period of time that since the handshake, the deputy president has not been supporting the government agenda, and he has been sabotaging every government agenda that was to benefit the common mwananchi. Miriam, we know he went around opening and commissioning projects that are not inexistent, projects that were out of the government agenda, and they were not allocated any finances or revenue to ensure that the work commences or the construction starts. Therefore, this is a man who has sabotaged the government. He has belittled the president in many occasions, not him literally, but using his supporters. And that one, we know they are quite a member of parliament who have been even went further. You know what was happening with the likes of Johanna Ngeno and Oscar Sudi when they went head on even to the family of the president where he comes from, and the Kenyattas, and they were calling them the Kenyattas. Therefore, Miriam, this is a man who has never supported the government agenda. And he is in the same government, Miriam. That is a funny thing. He is fighting the same government that he is campaigning for in 2017. Therefore, that is not a good picture, and that is true characters of who he is. Therefore, he cannot tell us, after sabotaging the government agenda for 4 years, then he have realized that.
Mm-hmm. All right, we seem to be having a problem there with your signal, Javan. Once you're able to have that sorted, we shall have you back.
Miriam, as a rejoinder for what Javan is saying, Miriam.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
As a rejoinder for what Javan was saying is that William Ruto and him saying he needs more consensus and everything that he wants, there's nothing that William Ruto wants. William Ruto wants to sabotage this thing and kill it. Remember, William Ruto woke up yesterday and went on and tweeted that now he has a constitutional duty to support his boss. Then in the evening, he comes up with another tweet and says, now I've received support and also many things. You would say that they are still looking for consensus. And we are asking Miriam in the simplest manner that anybody can understand, including what the former PM was saying, which is this non-contested referendum that William Ruto is talking about, that a veteran in politics like Raila Odinga cannot be able to gather his mind around. Again, why is William Ruto supporting the BBI process cosmetically? Because William Ruto, there is no point we can be able to put on him and say, when he came, he said he has been busy with the president improving the BBI process post-bombers, which we can be able to say categorically it is a lie, because William Ruto has been calling for consensus from the public so that he can gain public sympathy. And when the task force, because this is a process that is uniting Kenyans, and the only person who has antagonized this process from the word go, because he thought it is a persecution on his person and also a stop on his presidential bid in 2022, was one William Samoei Ruto, the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. But one thing that Kenyans need to understand, and one thing that Kenyans need to call and make very clear, is that William Ruto has never stood for what, including the consensus that he's talking about. One day he went on a campaign platform and he said that there is no way they can be able to negotiate with opposition. They defeated opposition in the ballot, and there is no way they can be able to negotiate with the same opposition to be able to move forward as a country. The same man who has been refusing to have a conversation with a few politicians is the same man that is telling Kenyans now his time has come, that we need to be able to have a consensus on something that he has fought for over 2 years, Miriam. We need to be very clear with the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya on why he is no longer interested in a united Kenya, because he is a beneficiary of a broken Kenya, of a Kenya that is not united. Because including that tweet of he has received support and also he has received concerns from Kenyans, those are not concerns from Kenyans who want him to go the right way. Those are concerns who have told him, we cannot be able to join you on a process that you have been able to demonize and also call out for the last 2 years. Kenyans have also grown. Kenyans have also come to terms with the rights of William Ruto misusing Kenyans and goodwill that they receive from Kenyans. Then the last minute they make an AMBAZONIA and they want Kenyans to support them. So Miriam, I submit and say that William Ruto has no goodwill completely, and William Ruto is playing games with his followers. Thank God that I was not his follower, so I'm not duped by him.
Okay, so there's a quote here by Martha Karua, who is the NARC Kenya leader, and she's quoted as saying, "We are here to reach out." We know she's been opposed to this BBI, so perhaps she will be the leader of the No campaign now that Ruto is not very keen on taking up that leadership position. And she's quoted as saying, "We are here to reach out to other Kenyans of like minds to join us as we build a movement that the Linda Katiba to defend the Constitution, defend impunity, and advance the transformational agenda that we set for ourselves a decade ago. We assure Kenyans that the Constitution of Kenya is still a good document that was proclaimed as one of the most progressive in the world when we promulgated it in August 2010. We are calling on Kenyans to resist this illegitimate, illegal, and ill-timed constitutional amendment initiative." Are we likely to see perhaps DP Ruto warming up to Martha Karua in the No campaign, because now he's not come out outright and say he's actually supporting the BBI, or that is a no-no for him? Daniel.
Miriam, one thing you have to realize that politics, nothing happens in a vacuum, really. And as much as my political intuitions are concerned, is that William Ruto has Martha Karua, and we have seen Martha Karua hang out with Hassan Omar Hassan, who is William Ruto's appointment in Mombasa. We've seen Mudhama with Martha Karua, Kivuta Kibwana, who has hosted William Ruto severally in Makueni, hanging out with Martha Karua. And therefore, that tells you there is a political formation which the deputy president want to use clandestinely to really be able to thwart the efforts to implementation and the sailing through of the BBI report. So therefore, this is his plan B, that if at all circumstances won't allow him to entirely be able to master a force and a group of politicians to oppose the referendum of BBI, then he shall be able to use a shadow group which consists of Martha Karua, Kivuta Kibwana. We've seen Boniface Mwangi, Mohamed Ali, Jichopevu. We have seen even other members of the civil society and the church to be able to launch an onslaught on the BBI report. So therefore, any Kenyans with a good brain will be able to unfold and unravel this kind of riddle that is coined between Martha Karua, William Ruto, civil society, and the church. These are the same, and there are people who are speaking a similar language when it comes to the BBI agenda. So I don't think that perhaps there is any clear line of distinction between whatever deputy president is advancing, whichever cause the deputy president is advancing, and whichever cause that Martha Karua and her group are advancing. So in the fullness of time, I believe if things won't work well for William Ruto, then he will be able to leave this particular group to champion the necessary support that they might need to roll out this kind of opposition to the report.
Right.
But if things stand as they are, Miriam, perhaps the deputy president might also come out clearly and join forces with Martha Karua, and they form the No campaign. That will largely define the 2022 politics, as I said earlier on.
All right, and this takes us back to perhaps where we started about the consensus, the non-contested, and we're going through that interview that Raila Odinga did with the Sunday Nation. There, he's saying, he needs to be taken to a political school, and indeed, perhaps we all need to, because as much as DP now is okay with some of the changes that were made, well, he's not come out clearly and stated that he's not joining the BBI team, but he seems to have been okay with some of the changes that were made. So now he feels now the consensus has been reached. But you see, people like Martha Karua are committed to voting and no. So that's why we cannot have a non-contested referendum. You're not going to force them not to vote no, and they want to vote no. That is the nature of a referendum. So the views of people like Martha Karua, who is also a very important political figure in this country, should they not be taken into account? She is not comfortable with the BBI report, and she really is out there leading a movement to oppose it. In a democratic state like we have here in Kenya, she should be allowed to do that. Douglas, don't you think?
William Ruto has been calling for a consensus in this country on the BBI, saying we need an uncontested referendum. Miriam, by your intent and purposes, Mr. Deputy President William Ruto is not clear, is not right, and again, is not being sincere. I know my friends in civil society who oppose, and they are watching this broadcast now. They are watching this live show now, and again, the same people are opposed to BBI process, are also friends to William Ruto. Most of them. Shona said, it is very clear, it is in black and white. This opposition that is coming from Martha Karua, I'm not saying Martha Karua has no mind of her own. No, Martha Karua has a mind of her own, but she has also gone into cohort with William Ruto and his cronies. They are opposing the BBI process, whereas the deputy president is calling for a non-consensus referendum, a non-contested referendum. Now, why would any right-minded and a man of a right standing in Kenya would want to follow William Ruto and say that William Ruto believes that in this country, the whole of this country, over 47 million people in this country who have an uncontested referendum will wake up, vote yes, 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 yes. That one is not going to happen, because we have seen William Ruto fund these people at night. We have seen these people being called out. We've seen as a normal follow William Ruto everywhere. We have seen as a normal Sarai follow William Ruto and also go and meet the likes of Martha Karua. They are Kenyans with serious concerns about the BBI process and also the constitution amendment in 2021. They don't want the constitution changed. They want to protect the constitution. But William Ruto and his friends, Martha Karua, Kibuga, Kibwana, and others are not sincere, Miriam. Because in this country, we need a referendum that is contested. Why? Because they are Kenyans of like-minded. People who are even using their own resources. They're not even funded by donors like the likes of Martha and as a normal who belong to the civil society. They are Kenyans who want to oppose BBI based on principle and based on what they believe in. There are Kenyans who are opposing BBI report because it has not covered what they want covered in a constitutional movement right now. There are Kenyans who want the BBI process to go through so that we can have a referendum like myself and others who believe their views have been captured in a BBI, in the amendment bill, and also they want a referendum where Kenyans can have their own voice. The same people who are preaching to us about an uncontested referendum are funding a contested referendum at the ballot. We need to call out the hypocrisy in Martha Karua and his groups, whose group subscribe to William Ruto at night. Kivuda Kibwana has now become like a stooge for the Deputy President William Ruto. We need to be able to call these people as they are because they are politicians, and we need to also protect the soul of this nation from the likes of William Ruto and his friends. There are Kenyans, I don't disagree. There are Kenyans who don't agree to the BBI process 100%. They want nothing changed from that constitution since 2010. But the rights that are fronted by William Ruto at night, and then William Ruto would start keep talking about consensus. And I gave a very simplistic African way of having an agreement and also having consensus in anything that you can do. If we decide today, I will repeat, in my house today, we are going to eat rice and beef. There is no way at 10:36 p.m. you tell me we're still having a consensus. We are going to buy a maize flour and have some ugari at midnight. People want to eat and sleep the same way. People want to pass this amendment. People want to pass this referendum. Whether it goes through or not, then we move to other things, because we cannot keep on this thing. For the last 2 years, we have been dragged by the likes of William Ruto and his friends, and they are not genuine. And the group on Martha Karua, they are right to have their own opinion on BBI, because I believe in the multitudes of 47 million Kenyans. There are Kenyans who cannot be persuaded by politicians or any activist to be able to vote yes or no for the BBI process. But one thing that we need to also agree with as Kenyans is that the group that is funded by William Ruto at night is not genuine. The group that is led by Martha Karua, Kivuta Kibwana, as an Omar Sarai, they are not genuine. We need to be able to say the way it is. The group that is funded by David, the group that is funded and also led by David Day, they meet almost every day to sabotage this process. So Miriam, the likes of Martha Karua and William Ruto are not entitled to their own opinion because they are speaking for William Ruto, but Kenyans in their millions are entitled to their own opinion for or against the BBI process. And that's what Sean was saying.
Yes.
Miriam, we need to have a constitutional movement or a referendum where those that don't agree can come and vote no. And those like me will come and cast their vote in favor of this amendment, of this referendum, Miriam.
All right, very well, Douglas. And Javen there, we had a problem with your signal. We're not able to get your complete thoughts, even as you conclude this matter and get into the other news that are also we should be looking at across Africa. Martha Karua has come out and she has said she has no intention of supporting this BBI report. In fact, she has formed a movement now to protect the constitution from to be reviewed or to be voted or for the referendum to take place. So what we were just talking while you were perhaps away was that the fact that William Ruto has now joined and well, he's not said he's joined, but he's saying his some of the views were captured, so perhaps now he's warmed up to joining the BBI team. We're not sure because he's not made that very clear, but perhaps he shall do that. And even if he does that, we still cannot have a consensus referendum because people like Martha Karua are saying, no, we do not support this BBI process. And so they should be allowed as the democracy that we are, I don't know who is funding, how not, but if she feels she is not going to support this process, our constitution and the referendum process should allow her the opportunity to vote no on the proposed, reforms there or changes there on our constitution. So still, Deputy President cannot walk around telling us now we do not want a contested referendum because we must have that. Martha Karua does not want to support this process. She has to be allowed to do that, to express her views. Don't you think, Javen, as we conclude this matter?
Yeah, thank you, Miriam, and thank you for this opportunity. And Miriam, that is why even the former Prime Minister, as you're reading from the Daily Nation, and I can confirm from my head, the Deputy President is saying it is possible to have an uncontested referendum, and that is a proof that these things are not. We cannot have it, Miriam, because the likes of Martha Karua, the likes of Boniface Mwangi, the likes of David D, who will bring them on board, who will bring these people on the table. Therefore, Miriam, we must agree that we are going for a contested kind of a referendum. And Miriam, there's something that I said earlier, and I will repeat it today, Miriam, because I have the opportunity. And I said that nobody has superior views, Miriam, because even if we go for that and we settle the issue with the Deputy President, we have other Kenyans that matter and their voice matters. Therefore, Miriam, we cannot agree and say that it's only the Deputy President who can bring a contested or uncontested referendum in this country, because he does not speak for all Kenyans. He speaks for a specific group of people who follows him, and the rest of Kenyans, they have their own minds, Miriam, because at where we are today, Kenyans are independent thinkers. We can make our decision without even the influence of them. Of the politicians. We have that group of Kenyans, and we have also Kenyans who can make decision on what their politicians are doing. Therefore, we will give all these people space to say what they want, and at the end of the day, Miriam, let's go for a referendum, and those people who have the numbers to say yes or no and win, then we'll agree on that. Therefore, it is a hypocritical for the Deputy President and those people and his team to think that now, after fighting the whole process for 2 years, they can come and start now sabotaging the document from inside. Because, Miriam, we remember the last time that the president worked together with the Deputy President, there was a lot of sabotage. Maybe he will come in the process and start sabotaging it from within. And that is not what we want. We want a process that will go on smoothly without interfering with anybody else's business, but the business of Kenyans is what matters at this point. Therefore, I agree with the Douglas and Wesonga that it's too late for the deputy president, and I think he has proved that he is a man who has no stand. He stands for he doesn't stand for anything, and he falls for anything that he feels that favors him. That is where he goes. And I feel like now he sees the Miriam. If he fails to see the presidency, he might become the official opposition leader. Or maybe he is aiming to become the deputy prime minister or the prime minister. Who knows? Maybe that is why he have felt like, let me support the document, so that Kenyans will say that because I supported the document, I'm as well to implement the document because I believe on what it contains. I think that is the direction he is taking, and it's not a direction of hustlers. That is his personal decision. Because Miriam, when you go to social media today, and from the last day, the day he tweeted that tweet, as a social media who influencer myself and other like Douglas Kilemi who are there in social media, will tell you the mood. And the people who support the deputy president are quite angry with him because he has no stand, and they are saying that we trusted you, but you have realized that you don't speak for the hustlers. You speak for yourself, and you go where you feel you are favored. Because this is a document that they termed as Bluebird Initiative, Beba Baba Ikulu. Now I would like to ask the deputy president, kwani anataka kubeba Baba Ikulu this time round? Therefore, let's Kenya go for the referendum, Miriam.
All right, and just before we conclude this matter, perhaps, Daniel, your thoughts on this, on the point that Javan just brought up. DP Ruto has previously said a referendum is not a priority during the pandemic, and now, of course, his supporters really were agreeing with everything that he was saying and his reasons as to why he was opposed to the BBI process, and all of a sudden he's trying to make a U-turn, but we've seen he's non-committal to full support of the BBI process. Is it because he feels that he owes his supporters some explanation which he cannot give right now, or is that the dilemma you think the deputy president is finding himself in right now?
Miriam, first of all, let me make it clear that the deputy president has not been opposing the BBI process out of principle, but out of his own personal greed and gains. And that is his pursuit for power and raw power in that sense. So it tells you that he has not really been quite objective in his opposition of the BBI agenda. And therefore, his supporters have been blindly following whatever he's been telling them. And in the process, they have been radicalized to believe that the BBI process is a very unnecessary expedition that the government and the people of Kenya ought not to be to be pursuing at the moment. And therefore, to wake up one day and just tell his supporters that now we have to support the BBI agenda when he has been discrediting it with all the trivial terms possible, it really becomes a very difficult exercise on his behalf. And that is why even yesterday, after insinuating that he's perhaps bracing up to support the BBI agenda, again in the evening he came again up with another tweet really pointing at the fact that he had consulted from his supporters, and he's got a lot of feedback from them, and therefore he was again drifting away from supporting the BBI agenda. So I think at the end of the day, William Ruto is a politician who has a lot of treachery, a politician who cannot be trusted, a politician who speaks with the both corners of his mouth. And therefore, trusting him is a very costly affair. And he's not being honest, even in his opposition of the BBI agenda. Neither is he honest in his support of the BBI agenda. He's caught in the middle of it all, and I will call him the watermelon of the recent past. And that he do not have any substantial stand on the BBI report. So that is what I get from it, Miriam.
All right. Thank you so much. So we were looking on the first part of the show, BBI and the referendum, and of course the redemption strategy for Kenya. And that is what President Uhuru Kenyatta and his handshake partner, opposition leader Raila Odinga, are set to do. That started all this BBI process after that famous handshake that happened in 2018 that has brought us to where we are today. So that is right now, of course, the signature process. It's continuing, and perhaps I think those should complete by this week, and so we'll see how that works out, and perhaps the Deputy President will have tweeted something different. I don't know why everything nowadays that is important someone has to tweet about, but I guess that is where we find ourselves when it comes to technology and social media. It has become a very important platform for communication. All right. Very well. So we shall keep you up to date tomorrow on our morning show on what the new developments in regards to the BBI. So now let's turn our attention to the rest of the stories that we had for you on across Africa. And we start with what is happening there in Ethiopia, the Tigray crisis. We know it has continued. And so Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed now says government forces are not fully in control of Mekelle, the capital of the northern Tigray region. He said the army had entered the city in the last phase of the conflict with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, but details are hard to confirm as there is a communication blackout in that area. The TPLF leader, the effects have been devastating as we speak right now. The TPLF fighters, drawn mostly from a paramilitary unit and a well-drilled local militia, are thought to have a number of about 250,000. Some analysts fear the situation could turn into a guerrilla conflict, and with the TPLF continuing to mount attacks on government forces, even if they take Mekelle, Tigray forces say they're ready to die in defense of their right to administer their region. See, if you don't do your politics very well, then this is bound to happen. And I think Kenya, we have an opportunity to learn from a crisis that is happening in Ethiopia right now. It is sad, but, the rest of us have an opportunity, even as we seek perhaps that Ethiopia may find a solution very soon to what is happening there. But we do have an opportunity to learn and to avert some of this if we can. So now, in case you're wondering what the conflict is about, well, just a bit of some background information there before my analysts come in. The conflict stemmed from the attempt of Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed to distance the country's politics from ethnic federalism that is quite deep-rooted there in Ethiopia, a power-sharing system giving regional influence to individual ethnic groups. By merging the ethnic and regional-based parties of Ethiopia's People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, which had governed Ethiopia for 30 years, into a nationwide prosperity party. The Tigray People's Liberation Front, a military and politically powerful entity inside Ethiopia representing 6% of the total population ethnically, refused to join the new party and alleged that Abiy Ahmed became an illegitimate ruler by rescheduling the general election set for 29th August 2020 to undetermined date in 2021 due to COVID-19. Now, the TPLF went ahead with the regional elections in Tigray in September 2020 in defiance of the federal government, which declared the Tigray election illegal. So what is happening now after Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came into power, tried to consolidate all these parties that were federally based, that were ethnically based, to try to form one big party. And so we've seen even the Oromo, from the Oromia region, they are also protesting a lot of these things. We saw that last year now, the Tigray people who refused to join that. And so this, when I know we joke around with, ethnic politics here in the country, and we had a taste of what that would look like if you continue oppressing on that very dangerous line in 2007, 2008. And you see, this seems to be the same problem based on that, because their politics were deeply rooted in the federal system that was ethnic. So Abiy said, we need to give this country a national outlook. And so that was met by resistance, because they had known that for the last 30 years. So he came in wanting to change, and perhaps he did not consult widely and perhaps understood the feelings of the people on the ground. Would you say that could have been what brought Ethiopia where it is here today, Javan?
Thank you very much, Miriam. And you have said a very good thing, and you have given us the background on what is happening in Ethiopia, so that you bring on to us speed on maybe what is happening there. And Miriam, that is a very bad thing. And Miriam, if you want to touch on people's lives and you want them to be chaotic and to overreact, the thing that you touch on is their tribe, their color, their
religion,
class, religion, their class, and so on. Those things are very close to the people's heart. Everybody across the world. Therefore, when the president and the prime minister of Ethiopia is using force, Miriam, I think he could use other better means to ensure that he bring that the end of that politically ethnic mobilization of voters or parties, so that he can bring it on a foundation that will not affect them or make them react. I think that is where he has failed as the prime minister. And I think these people thought that by doing so and by eroding their ethnic or community parties, then they will not have a say in the politics of the region. And that is the issue that we have in Ethiopia. And I think the best that he can do, he should not refuse the support that he is getting from the international bodies or the negotiators who want to bring consultations and negotiation in Ethiopia, because at the end of the day, as a leader, what you want is peaceful coexistence between your people. And he should also support that kind of negotiation. They sit on the table, they agree, because Miriam, we agree to disagree, and at the end of the day, we bring a result, we come up with a conclusion. Therefore, the best they can do is to go on the table, sit down with everybody, even if it's the AU that maybe he's not feeling they will represent him well or the country. He need to come, all these people mediate and so on, so that we speak, because Miriam, we understand a problem shared and is half solved. And that's exactly what we want to see in Ethiopia, because if they continue maintaining those hardlines, they maintaining those hardlines, then at the end of the day, we will not have a solution, and the people will continue displacing, property will continue being destroyed. These people in Tigray region will continue fighting the police officers and the government of the day. Therefore, the best we can do there is to have peace and talks. And Miriam, in our African context, we need to avoid these politics that are mobilized around tribes and ethnic and the communities politics, because at the end of the day, when they backfire, they are very dangerous, they are very volatile, and the lives must be lost. That is not the kind of politics we want. Yes, the Ahmed Prime Minister is trying to bring sanity, but he is not doing it from a point of knowledge or understanding on the setback that he will take this country into. Therefore, as even in Kenya, we must avoid such mobilization. It's better we mobilize our people on basis of manifestos and agendas and ideologies, rather than doing it on the tribe, because when that thing grows, Miriam, that is why even in our country, your fighting is even difficult to erode these politics of tribes, because they have been rooted and the politicians have given them time to grow, and they have developed very strong taproots. That is why it is difficult to do away with them. Therefore, I agree that we need solution in the Ethiopia, because when Ethiopia suffers, the whole of Africa and the Eastern African community, we experience, because these refugees will come to our country, we'll have things, we'll have mobilization. Then that is where we end up even having terrorist groups forming around that kind of a crisis.
All right, very well. And of course, that crisis there in Sudan, in Ethiopia, there's one country that is already feeling the impact there, Jeven, as you have rightly said it, and that is Sudan, who is already reeling from its own problems. Remember, after the ousting of Omar al-Bashir, Sudan is still having its own problems there with security, with financial stability and all that. It's just trying to have its house in order. And now on top of that, as you speak right now, an estimated of over 40,000 Tigrayan refugees have fled Ethiopia into Sudan, overwhelming local authorities, with the United Nations warning of a humanitarian disaster. And now Sudan needs about $150 million in aid to cope with the flood of Ethiopian refugees crossing its border from conflict-stricken Tigray. And on top of that, another insecurity has been introduced. As we speak right now, Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, that is the Janjaweed, but Sudan's Rapid Support Forces have seized significant amounts of weapons, ammunition, and military equipment on its eastern border with Ethiopia. So you see, it's not just one problem there. It's now spreading even and becoming an insecurity in Sudan, and of course it might be in other African countries. Douglas, how can we solve this problem?
Thank you, Miriam. A bit of more history about Ethiopia is that Ethiopia was one of those countries that were never colonized. And based on that principle of non-interference with their internal affairs since colonial times, Ethiopia has been solving their own internal problems by themselves and without any assistance. And that has given dictators and bad leaders from the bigger communities an opportunity to perpetuate impunity and also lawlessness in terms of governance and human rights in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is one of the countries that subverts the human rights of its people and even the region. Because you can remember when Ethiopians go to Somalia, there's nothing bad that can be reported about the army in Somalia or any other country. Because they have that policy of see it all, don't say anything. So the people of Tigray, when they refuse to join on the Prosperity for All party, they have created a situation where we have been exposed to the hypocrisy of the government of Ethiopia. The government of Ethiopia needs to be able to understand that joining these parties together and corrupting every community into one party is not going to work in Ethiopia. Remember, the former prime minister who was removed from power, when he resigned so that Abiy can come into power, there was a crisis that he mismanaged, that got into proportion, and now they want to cross everything down and send him home so that they can have another person. Abiy should not forget that Ethiopia, the existence of Ethiopia is based on their ethnicities and also based on their coexistence that they have agreed on, not something that they can be forced on and also be forced to join those parties. What I think Abiy should do, and also the world should also help Ethiopia do, is that they should not force Ethiopians into one political monolith party that can be able to govern Ethiopia. The people of Tigray have every right to do what they are doing today because they are being forced to do things that they don't want. Abiy wants to have his way or the highway. He doesn't want to have any negotiation. He doesn't want anybody from outside the outside world to come and intervene. Whereas the people of Tigray are suffering today, Abiy needs to be able to come to terms with the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground is this. The people are suffering today. Women, children, and men are suffering in Tigray because of the stand that the government of Ethiopia, led by Abiy, has taken. The seat of African Union is in Ethiopia. The seat of Higard is in Ethiopia. What are they doing today to be able to compel the government of Ethiopia that has adopted non-interference approach into their internal issues? We remember when there is an issue in a neighboring country, Ethiopia will just move in with the army or also try sending diplomats to be able to bring an end to such war. But why are they suppressing the rights of Tigray people and other small ethnicities that don't want to be bundled into one monolith party so that they can be governed as one party? They need to be given their democratic right to decide their fate. And I think as things continue, one of the things that, as a last resort, if Abiy continues killing the people of Tigray, they need to secede from Ethiopia. And I think that can bring the parties on board so that they can be able to work on an united Ethiopia. Because there is no way Abiy, who was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize for his cosmetic peace that he had started with Eritrea, can be allowed to continue killing people and maiming them. We saw his statement saying that the army, they have given them 72 hours to be able to retreat, or they are going to take control of their region. Remember, when an army comes to a village, to a city, they are not coming in peace. They are coming in force. They are fighting. There is fighting in Tigray. So I think the only way they can be able to do is to be autonomous from the larger Ethiopia. Because Abiy has been killing them, aiming them, and also taking advantage of his big army and all that. I think the people of Tigray their needs to be taken into account. I think their way of life should not be, their political life should not be interfered with. And Abiy should stop doing this because these parties have been in existence before he was in power. He needs to stop bundling them into one minority party, and also the international community should wake up and intervene. The EU that sits in Addis Ababa needs to wake up because they are doing nothing to the pride of the Tigray people. And not only in Tigray. When Abiy is done with the Tigray people, he will go to other small communities that will descend on his leadership. And he's a dictator that needs to be called on called out because he's abusing the rights of those people to exist, Miriam.
Right.
Another thing I think that can happen is that we cannot wait for Abiy to displace people and then the UN can be able to wait them on the border so that they can give them assistance and also give them tents to be refugees and all that. The United Nations needs to do a special sitting on Ethiopia and the crisis that is in Ethiopia. Because remember, the AU sits in Ethiopia. IGAD sits in Ethiopia.
No, IGAD is in Djibouti, I believe. But AU is there. Yeah.
AU is a monolith organization that takes care of the whole of Africa. If we suffer today, if they suffer today in Tigray, there is no way we can be able to have a stable region. There is no way the EU can be able to dispense its mandate with the full authority of other countries that have crises, whereas where they sit at the seat of their power, there is suppression of human rights, people are dying, women are being raped, and the army is using force in that place. We need to call out Abiy and also his government and also the people who are hardliners in the government of Ethiopia, because the people of Tigray are suffering. If you read what you read, mostly about Ethiopia is not the truth on the ground.
Yes.
Those people are suffering, and their views and their political way of life should be able to be put into account, and they can coexist without the mighty drama that Abiy is trying to introduce in Ethiopia.
All right.
Thank you, Miriam.
Very well, Douglas. Thank you so much. So, of course, the situation escalated to violence on the 4th of November with an alleged attack by the Tigray People Liberation Front on the Northern Command headquarters of the Ethiopian National Defense Force. Rocket attacks were spilled over into the neighboring Amhara region and the country of Eritrea. The Ethiopian government stated that the federal forces had captured the Tigrayan capital of Mekelle on the 28th of November, following which Prime Minister Abiy declared the Tigray offensive over. The TPLF has said they will continue fighting. So, of course, the escalation of violence started on the 4th of November, and of course, we've been wondering where IGAD is, and we know it has only gotten worse since then. But the last statement that IGAD issued was on the 7th of November, which is so many weeks back, maybe 7 or so weeks ago. IGAD, part of the statement reads, IGAD calls the government of Ethiopia and concerned parties to show restraint, work on de-escalating the tensions and resolve their differences through dialogue and reconciliation. IGAD believes that Ethiopia has been a beacon of stability and economic development in the region and pillar for peace and security. Just part of that statement by IGAD said, and that was on November 7th, 2020, and we know things have only gotten worse there. And African Union wanted to send some envoys there for mediation, and Abiy Ahmed refused. And remember, we have African Union headquarters there in Addis Ababa. Because African Union has an article there that allows it to interfere, especially when they feel the rights of people are being abused. Right now, you cannot access the Tigray region. No journalist is allowed there. No information apart from what the government is giving is what people think is happening. So there's no telling the amount of suffering the people of Tigray that are still remaining in that area are going through. So what perhaps options do you think, Daniel, AU has at this point? IGAD gave a statement on the 7th of November, which I don't know why they have not folded another one, because things have only gotten worse. Daniel.
Miriam, the AU, as much as I'm concerned, under Musa Mohammed Faki, is that AU is a toothless dog. It has been dormant for quite some time and does not have any political socio-economic clout that could be able to bring any kind of peace deal or consensus or ceasefire in the Tigray region. And going back, Douglas has talked quite historically about the Ethiopian conflict. And Ethiopia, to understand the conflict that is happening now between the federal government and the region of Tigray, you have to understand the history of Ethiopia. Ethiopia is made up of three dominant ethnic groups. That is the Oromo, who are the majority. We have the Amhara, who are the second majority, and then we have the Tigray. But when it comes to leadership, Miriam, you have to understand that the Tigray people have been at the core of the leadership in Ethiopia for quite a long time, and even the predecessor of Abiy Ahmed, that is Meles Zenawi, was from the Tigrayan region, and therefore, when you hear them coming, rising to arms when their sovereignty is threatened, they have a very greater feeling in the Tigrayan region that since they have been in government for a long time, and the majority of Oromo people actually, what led to the Oromo resistance was that they felt that they had been left out of government for quite some time. Despite them being the majority of the population. So therefore, the Tigrayans have something to worry that perhaps if they are galvanized into this monolithic party in the state, they will be pushed into marginalization since they have been at the seat of power for quite some time. So that is one thing that is bringing that kind of recension to the leadership of Ahmed Abiy. When you go back to history again, Miriam, before independence of Eritrea, we had Ethiopia being just composed of the three main tribes. But after the Italians left Eritrea after independence and Somalia, Ethiopia acquired the Eritrean territory, and it added it into the 13 provinces of regions of Ethiopia. It also extended its territory through conquistadors to the two regions, the Eritrean region and the Ogadia region, have always been at war with the main Ethiopian territory, because the Muslims, the northern Muslims in Eritrea, were for the decision that perhaps Eritrea should remain as an independent state, but the Christian South, together with the Tigrayans, were of the support that Eritrea should be amalgamated into the Ethiopian state. So we've always had conflicts since time immemorial between Eritrea, around the Tigray region, between Eritrea and Ethiopia, as well as also the southwest region, the Ogadia region, where we have the Somali people fighting the Ethiopian establishment. So therefore, at this particular time, when you see the people of Tigray fighting to maintain their sovereignty, it really tells you that this is something that has been there for the longest time. And therefore, to Abiy Ahmed, as Javan Karanja has said, as Douglas has auspiciously stated, they want to maintain that autonomy as much as possible, as well as to also be in part and parcel of the federal government. And that is the culture that has been there since the times of Menelik II, the times of Haile Selassie, and even when Mengistu Haile Mariam came on board and introduced political parties, they were formed on the basis that these regions will maintain their autonomy. And therefore, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed cannot invent the wheel. He can only improve it and be able to revolutionize it by maybe strengthening the structures that were there. But in any case, trying to galvanize the country into one-party state, then it will be very difficult for him. And for a fact, this kind of conflict that we are having in the Tigray region is because is stemming up because Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed had promised the country that they were going to have a multi-party elections in this year, and due to the pandemic, it was suspended and pushed forward. And this is something that the people of the Tigray region saw as maybe unwillingness from the side this year, and therefore they went on to hold their own elections, which the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF, garnered the majority support, and to the government of the day in Addis Ababa, they saw this as maybe some push to bring a momentum of secession and be able to sabotage the federal government, and therefore a conflict ensued out of this. So the only option that is remaining for people who are like-minded and the AU to solve this particular conflict is to assure the government of Ethiopia that the people of Tigray are not are not of the opinion, maybe their intentions are not to split from the government of Ethiopia, the federal government of Ethiopia, and chart their own path, and also on likely terms to assure the people of Tigray that there is a commitment for the government of Ethiopia not to galvanize the country into a single-party state, but they will continue to observe the structure that have been there to ensure that all those regions in Ethiopia have their own autonomy, as well as in as much as they continue sitting in the federal government. Mm-hmm. So here, whatever the problem is the problem of clearly outlining the boundaries of authority and self-governance between the territories of Ethiopia, so as to make sure that in as much as we have the regional governments, we also have a strengthened national government, which ensures that these territories, these federal territories, are held to the latter, and the culture of Ethiopia goes forward. That is the main problem, Miriam. And if we can, we can be able to check if the relevant key players are able to check to ensure that we do not have overlaps in the terms of leadership and mandate between those two layers of government, the federal government and the regional government, then we shall have a peaceful Ethiopia. But otherwise, as it is right now, I think Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is on a very ambitious but a costly expedition, which could send the whole of Ethiopia into a civil crisis. Remember, countries, just as I conclude, Miriam, countries like Ethiopia, Nigeria, which have always had a federal system of government, have always been bound to conflicts. And this is because whenever the national government tends to surpass its mandate in meddling in affairs of the federal, in the regional governments, mm-hmm. and we always have a conflict. And also, whenever the national government sees any particular regional government to be charting a path of secession, mm-hmm. you saw what happened in Biafra region in Nigeria. They will always have a conflict. So therefore, the only way forward is to ensure that we have a very clear outline on the boundaries, on mandates and leadership of both governments, so that we have a seamless and we have a collaborating system that enables each party to practice its mandate without being hindered or without any kind of sabotage. That will be the best way forward. But as it is right now, Ethiopia is facing a myriad of issues, and it is not only in the Tigray region. You have to remember that even in his backyard, in the Oroma region, we have been having the Oromia separationist groups
for
fighting.
a very long time.
So it is an issue that requires.
Yes. And we shall continue looking at this story, of course. And Daniel, there, when you're giving examples of even the countries that are facing a couple of challenges when it comes to federalism, Somalia is a very good example, our neighbor here, and that has also been a major problem. We see how President Farmajo there is having issues with other federal governments there in the country. And Tigray, region, maybe as opposed to what we see in Nigeria or Somalia, but Somalia I think is quite different. It may perhaps it's like that one of Ethiopia, because you've seen that the Tigray People's Liberation Front is not just a party, an ethnical entity. Also, it has a very powerful military, and it's a very powerful political entity inside Ethiopia. So it's a government on its own inside the bigger government of Ethiopia there. So that is also a major challenge, because when you have people who are equipped militarily, then you have a lot to deal with. So that situation in Ethiopia, we shall continue following for you. And Haile Mariam Desalegn, that was the prime minister who had to resign due to some protests there in Ethiopia before he was succeeded by Abiy Ahmed. And before him, we had Meles Zenawi, who passed on. All right, a bit of some history there. Now, I know we were supposed to look at Biafra and also Ambazonia, but some news that Nigerians woke up to yesterday over the death of a couple of people there. And I don't know why Nigeria is not awash with with outbursts as we speak right now. Attackers have killed dozens of people working in a rice field in northeastern Nigeria, according to several local sources. And the assailants on Saturday tied up the agricultural workers and slit their throats in the village of Kashobe near Maiduguri, the capital of Borno State. And 43 bodies were recovered, all of them slaughtered. Boko Haram did this. And we've talked so much about the insecurity in Nigeria because, you know, Nigeria is the mother and father of Boko Haram. And President Buhari has refused to deal with the issue of Boko Haram. Instead, Boko Haram has continued to flourish and be very strong under his leadership. Remember when he was coming to power in his first term, he had said, I will finish Boko Haram 100 days into office, and now he finished his first term and he's in his second term, and still nothing much seems to be done when it comes to Boko Haram. And so when you see the things that Boko Haram has been doing and you know, the maiming, the killings, all that stuff there in Nigeria, I don't know why Nigerians are not calling for, because as a government, and we saw the challenges that we had here with the Al-Shabaab and how it had almost becoming impossible to walk around the city and not get scared. The grenades are going off in the markets, in the matatus, in our roads, in the malls, all over the place. The government of Kenya had to sit down with our intelligence, and they had to figure out ways in which the best they can protect the people of Kenya. And now what we hear is that the police and the intelligence community thwarted an attack that was imminent. They were able to stop it before it happened, and very few times do we hear Kenyans being killed and maimed by the Al-Shabaab from Somalia. Why do you think President Buhari is not able to do this? Does Nigeria not have the capacity to do that? And in the recent past, when I usually do the afternoon show covering the African news, a lot of times and a few times I've read that even the army there in Nigeria, the army officials are resigning, saying they don't have enough weapons to even fight Boko Haram there. What is going on there in Nigeria, Javan?
Miriam, and we are here. And I think there are a lot of issues that are affecting our brothers from Nigeria. And the last time we were talking of the SARS kind of the police unit that was terrorizing the people of the people of Nigeria. Therefore, the people of Nigeria has been suffering in the hands of police, and at the same time, they're suffering from the hands of terrorists. And this is so unfortunate when they have a president who is legitimately in power. Therefore, he's supposed to be doing something and to ensure that these kind of things are not happening. And Miriam, on the issue of SARS, Miriam, before I come to the terrorist, he talked of reforming the police. And what they did, they scrapped a few officials and they changed them to a new department. And those things don't work, Miriam, because at the end of the day, you are transferring an incompetent police officer to a different unit. Therefore, you are just transferring him with his characters there, because at the end of the day, the characters and the bad behaviors have not changed. And I think the best they need to do, and to ensure that we have sustainability, is to ensure that those police who are culpable of terrorizing the people of Nigeria suffers severely, so that they teach a lesson to those.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we apologize for that. Seems to have suffered another signal problem there from Chevin, but when he's able to join us back, he will continue. Douglas, a lot of things are happening there in Nigeria, and we saw when Nigerians were tired of the SARS. Are you able to continue? Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm saying that before I come to the terrorist issue, the Boko Haram, mm-hmm. These is a group that has come into power. And Miriam, what I see is like since Buhari came to power, it's like he is giving the police, the army, inadequate facilities to fight the terrorist group. And what he is supposed to do is to ensure that the army and the police officers are well equipped. They are on the modern technologies of using weapons and so on, so that they will be able to deal with this corrupt group. Because Miriam, these Boko Harams, what they're using high intelligence services. They're able to get good weapons. That is why they're able to do, and they have quite a well-coordinated kind of approach when they are doing their missions. And I think the government of the day has slept, and it's high time we called the president of Nigeria and the police officers in order. Miriam, you have said that the army officers leaders. Some of them are resigning from the job because of claims that they don't have enough facilities, they have not inadequate, the environment is not conducive even to fight this Boko Haram. Therefore, the president of the day should work in coordination with all other intelligence services in Nigeria to ensure that they scrap this terrorist group once and for all. Because, Miriam, if they fail to do that, this group will continue terrorizing the people of Nigeria, will continue terrorizing even the people. And it is a threat even to the West African countries. And even the AU and the other African bodies should come into play and to ensure that this thing is fought wholesomely. Because if we leave it to Nigeria, and I think next time, Nigeria should ensure that they have a good president, because what we are seeing, apart from the terrorists, the corruption issue in Nigeria is also in rise. And I feel like it's a kind of a corrupt leadership that we have across Africa, where we end up having leaders who feel like they are entitled to what cares to them and not to the people who voted them. Therefore, the people of Nigeria, they need to be protected. The government should wake up. They should ensure that their armies are well trained and they have the equipment needed to facilitate a successful fight against this terror group. And we saw what happened. And when we had the Al-Shabaab here in the country, the government coordinated, Miriam, and they were able even to sense and to know what the Al-Shabaabs are planning to do. That is what we want to see happening in Nigeria, so that they can have that preventive kind of approach, and then they have the curative measures that will ensure that they deal with this group once and for all. Yeah, thank you.
All right, very well. Thank you so much, Javen. Douglas, President Buhari several times has been accused of being aloof and not really being in touch with what really is happening there in Nigeria. In fact, every time I am reading news from Nigeria, there's been a lot of attacks from Boko Haram, and we know Boko Haram has developed its tentacles, and now they're in Chad, they're in Niger, they're in other countries, Burkina Faso, they're causing mayhem, even in Cameroon itself, the neighboring, that region there, the Sahel region. Boko Haram has really caused a lot of mayhem. And at the beginning, some countries even offered to come in and help President Buhari, and he refused. The same way the Mozambican president refused when the international community wanted to come in and help it to fight. They also have, I think, Al-Shabaab there that is now also causing a lot of mayhem. So President Buhari refused, and according to him, Boko Haram has been brought under control, and we know that is not true. They're kidnapping children in school, they're killing people, they're taking over a whole highway, like from here to Kisumu, you cannot drive through. Boko Haram has taken charge of it. You wonder, do we have a government in Nigeria, and why are Nigerians not really speaking out loud against the incompetence of President Muhammadu Buhari?
Thank you, Miriam. When President Muhammadu Buhari came into power in 2015, there was a president called Goodluck Jonathan Ebere. Goodluck Jonathan was a president that and almost wiped away the Boko Haram problem. That is the reason why mostly is that he had goodwill. But today we have seen Boko Haram permit and grow and also have roots from the northern parts of Nigeria, where Buhari comes from. Buhari himself today cannot go home to Kaduna. Today, Buhari cannot access his Duara home in Kaduna. Why? Because there are Boko Haram and also armed robbers who are also part of Boko Haram, who are ridding the country of its peace and also making transport in Nigeria become very unbearable. Why is President Buhari not keen on tackling the issue of Boko Haram? President Buhari is a northerner, and these problems are mostly coming from the northern sides of Nigeria. We've not had from the southern sides of Nigeria or even eastern when we have problems of Boko Haram taking over and doing all manner of things. We have states in Nigeria where the county government or the state government would govern in the morning, and in the evening Boko Haram is governing, or they will be governing side to side. And the biggest reason why President Buhari is not keen into tackling the issue of Boko Haram is that Boko Haram and religion are intertwined. And when people are suffering the way they are suffering in Nigeria, the economy in Nigeria has been toppled down through corruption and all manner of steering. There is wanton steering of public resources in Nigeria. There are no jobs in Nigeria. Electricity is a problem in Nigeria. Internet is a problem in Nigeria. So Nigerians are too tired to be able to think about the issue of Boko Haram that is affecting some part of the country because they are fighting for their next meal. I have friends in Nigeria. They have no stable income. They have no stable internet. Their way of life is very hard in Nigeria. That's why you see Nigerians migrating to other countries, including illegally. One of the reasons why Nigeria should be able to tackle that thing is that the president has no goodwill, but the president needs to stamp his authority, because you would see the people that were killed yesterday. You would see the same people who were killed yesterday in another part, maybe outside Nigeria, in some form of coordinated attacks or that are affected by these people. And remember, before the issue of Boko Haram became so prominent, we had a lot of religious fundamentalism taking place not only in Nigeria but many parts of Africa and the rest of the world. So the issue of religion and the issue of poverty and corruption are the biggest impediment to peace and coexistence in Nigeria. President Buhari himself is a very corrupt man who rided into power on an anti-corruption platform. Today, you cannot separate President Muhammadu Buhari because most of his friends and cronies and his family members are dipping their hands in public coffers. Corruption has been able to kill peace in Nigeria, has been able to disfranchise the people of Nigeria, and religious fundamentalism has been able to do that. Because mostly you would find they will go and attack Abbas, that as Christians, and kill, let's say 10 Christians and leave Muslims. We need to be able to demystify the issue in Nigeria. Today, the president is not comfortable with dealing with the issue of Boko Haram because it touches his religion. And also, again, corruption has been able to cripple services in Nigeria. The economy is not performing well. Another thing that we need to also candidly talk about is the issue of President Muhammadu Buhari integrating Boko Haram into the government of Nigeria. President Muhammadu Buhari has been one of the hypocrites of all time. You'd go and gather Boko Haram and come and now say they have undergone a training.
Yeah, they call them repentant Boko Haram, former militia group. They call them repentant Boko Haram.
We have never seen anyone, including the president of Russia, Putin. He has said he can never negotiate with the terrorists. The only thing he can do is to send them to God, and it is the responsibility of God to forgive the terrorists. Why is President Muhammadu Buhari integrating a terrorist into his government? That is one thing we need to call out President Muhammadu Buhari. He has no political goodwill and he has no capacity to be able to deal with that issue. We also wrote President Goodluck Jonathan, who almost wiped out Boko Haram. But Boko Haram, we have seen Boko Haram meet and also grow in Chad and other countries. Boko Haram is in Cameroon. Why is President Buhari doing all that? President Buhari is causing all that so that Nigerians will focus on that, as he also focuses on steering and also plundering the economy of Nigeria. If you ask Nigerians today, they will tell you President Muhammadu Buhari, who rode to power on an anti-corruption platform, is a corrupt human being, is a man who lacks moral authority to be able to stand tall and save the people of Nigeria the problem of Boko Haram menace. And one of the things that we need to also tell the people of Nigeria is that people who sympathize with them, like countries and AU and all, they were saying they are going to help President Muhammadu Buhari, and then he said he has contained that. But barely a day passes when you don't see people on social media post, because Nigerians cannot be stopped by their corrupt government. You will see them. In my degree, you see people who say Abbas has been attacked, government will rubbish those reports. Then you see it on CNN, on Reuters. You see it on BBC. We will see Nigeria corrupting under the hands of President Muhammadu Buhari, simply because President Muhammadu Buhari and the people who surround him are very corrupt. They want to continue steering what they focus the signs on northern Nigeria. Why do we have so many billionaires from northern Nigeria, whereas it is the same time, it is the same place where there is a lot of insecurity? I think insecurity and lack of jobs and money go hand in hand. Why is the northern part of Nigeria having the problems that they're having today? But at the back of the issue is the president is from Kaduna. Kaduna, there is no peace. The governor of Kaduna cannot execute his mandate well. The governor of Borno State and the governor of Zamfara cannot execute their mandate well. Why? It is because they are using that Boko Haram for political mobilization and also machinations. We've seen politicians in Nigeria use goons. Those goons are none other than the Boko Haram that the president himself supports and also integrates in his own army. We cannot have that situation in a country like Kenya where President Uhuru Kenyatta gets Al-Shabaab and integrates them into the national army, the harrowed national army of the Republic of Kenya. So President Muhammadu Buhari has failed Nigerians. There is no goodwill from his end. There is also corruption that has crippled his government. So they would want to deflect the issue of corruption using Boko Haram. And they wouldn't want to fight it because these people can be able to detect that their economies are being plundered. So I think what can be done now is that Nigerians can be helped by helping Nigeria get better governance and getting Nigeria rid of corrupt politicians like Muhammadu Buhari and his people. We also need to pray for Nigeria. Not only pray for Nigeria seriously, because if a leader would say they don't need any help, but Nigerians are dying daily. Nigerians are suffering. There's no electricity, no internet. Actually, if I have friends today who are listening on this broadcast, they cannot follow it directly because they are suffering under the hands of Buhari and his Boko Haram group.
Okay.
So we need to call out that president and also tell him to retire before 2023. All
right. Well, thank you so much, Douglas. Thank you so much. And I'm sure a lot of Nigerians are watching us, especially those from Biafra. They totally agree with your sentiments there. Now, the victims were laborers from Sokoto State in northwest Nigeria, roughly 1,000 kilometers away, who had traveled to the northeast to find work, and they were working on a rice field where they had been contracted, I think, to harvest. 43 of them out of the 60 were dead, and 6 others were injured, and they were being killed by being slit. By the time you're slitting the throat of this many people, do we not have local authorities there? You already know that is a hotspot for terrorists. Why hasn't the government of Nigeria, led by President Buhari, even beefed up its security around these hotspot areas? Daniel, if you cannot protect your people, which is the number one core responsibility of any president of any world, if you're failing to assure the people that elected you that you can protect their lives, what business do you have there still calling yourself a president? Daniel.
Miriam, with a population of slightly over 200 million people, Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa. And from history, Miriam, Nigeria was meant to be the heartbeat of Africa. Nigeria was enriched in every way, in every definition that you will put it into, because Nigeria was blessed with the minerals, oil, that is oil. Nigeria, at the independence time, most African independence time, Nigeria had more learned individual intellectuals, more than any other country in Africa. Nigeria was so much enriched that perhaps it was among the first states, apart from Ghana, it was the second African state to gain independence. And therefore, that tells you that much hope of the African continent's ascendance and prominence lay in the hands of Nigeria and other West African countries. But that was not to be, because soon after independence, only a few years after independence, Nigeria was bedeviled by a civil war. It had so many coup d'etats more than any other African countries, and it soon fell into state of anarchy. And that has hence been the description terms which Nigeria has come to be known for. And therefore, what Douglas has said is very, very much correct. And especially when you look at it in terms of leadership, is that Nigeria is reeling from the pain of failed leadership. As it is right now, Nigeria is a banana republic under President Muhammadu Buhari, who is a northerner. And Boko Haram, the problem of Boko Haram, it should be known that it emanates from the northern part of Nigeria. But also, this is a country whose industries are failed because of the resource curse. We call it the Dutch disease, where oil has, instead of being a blessing to the country, it has brewed more corrupt politicians. It has brewed more corruption cartels. It has sent the country into anarchy. It has deprived the nation of its development agenda, and more, it has risen the inflation of the country and made the local industries to collapse. We do not have other local industries apart from the oil-supported businesses, Miriam, in Nigeria. And prior to that, we had a very flourishing cotton and fabric industry in Nigeria and Ghana, where most of the African attires materials came from Nigeria and Ghana. But because of the oil trade, the money that was trickling in because of the illegal oil trade, we do not have such industries, and a lot of business that is being done is controlled by the cartels and the people who the good-to-do business people who deal in oil, and therefore that kind of impunity has trickled all the way to the leaderships of the country, and the cartels of the day determine who becomes the president of the country. And in 2010, after the untimely demise of Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, who died in office in 5th May of 2010, it left the country in some kind of crisis. The oil cartels could not be fathom who they wanted to take the mantle of leadership, because the death was so sudden that they never expected. And therefore, at that time, an unlikely to power, and that was Jonathan Goodluck, who is a Southern Christian at that time. So with Jonathan Goodluck in government, the cartels had a very loose grip on his leadership, and therefore they could not influence a lot of things that are happening in government when it comes to power and how business were being done in government. And at that time, Nigeria experienced a relative period of prosperity. There was quite some progress when handling the terrorist threat of Boko Haram. But soon, when the elections happened in May 2015, when the election happened after Jonathan's term expired, and Muhammadu Buhari came into office, who is a Northern also. Now the question of Al-Shabaab again came into play again, because we've seen that in as much as he promised that he will be able to eliminate that threat in 100 days, he has done so little in regards to fighting Boko Haram, and more and more the country has fallen into the melancholy and despondency of terrorist attacks. We've seen so many people lose their lives. We've seen even businesses being disrupted because of the terrorist activities in the Niger Delta, in the northern part of the country. The schoolgirls who were abducted, some of them have never been found by their parents. And to me, I think Nigeria is a writhing country, a country which is under a lot of pain due to failed leadership, due to sporadic terrorist attack, due to cartels which have always looted and deprived the country of its natural resources and public coffers. So to me, I think the government, the backstop to the government of President Muhammadu Buhari, who has failed to deliver to the people of Nigeria. And the world over, when a leader, you fail to protect the lives of the people, you fail to protect the properties and the resources of your country, then the noble thing for you to do is to resign. But since Nigeria is a country which has been kidnapped and hijacked by the illegal cartel enterprise, that a lot of systems in the government cannot be able to do balances. It cannot be able to combat corruption, scandals in the government itself. It cannot even be able to combat a very weak terrorist group such as Boko Haram. President Muhammadu Buhari and his cronies have continued to hold the grip of power without any remorse, and that has always served to more and more detriment the status of affairs for the people of Nigeria. And with the recent occurrence of the SARS demonstrations and killings, I believe Nigeria is now ripe for change. The people should stand up and make their voices heard, and they should, first of all, make sure that they get rid of the problem at the core of the leadership, and that is to send President Muhammadu Buhari and his cronies packing. That is the way the nation, the federal government of Nigeria, will be able to redeem itself, and the people themselves will be able to be part and parcel of the prosperity that comes with the wide resource base and the kind of enrichments that are there in Nigeria, Miriam. But as it is right now, I think Nigeria is in a sorry state of affairs. And as even Chinua Achebe wrote, he said that the problem of Nigeria is not its people, it is not its resources, but its problem has always been the goodwill of those in power to truly serve its people, to truly make sure that at the end of the day, the resources that come out of the Nigerian soil enrich its people. That is my submission, Miriam.
All right, thank you so much, Daniel Wesonga from Nairobi. Thank you, Javan Karanja from Nanyuke. And indeed, thank you, Douglas Kirimi from Meru. All of them are in Kenya, in case you're wondering. Thank you so much, our viewers, for watching. This has been African Showdown. My name is Miriam Magutu. Bye-bye for now. I hope to see you here tomorrow in the morning, 9 a.m. East African time for more news across the continent.